Doing amazing, Neil. How about you?
I'm fantastic. Our guest today is Catherine Carlin. I had Catherine on, I think, just the radio show. We weren't even doing the Zoom
Mm.
thing that at that point in time. And her career keeps growing. And we're going to talk today about the residence and so much more. How are you, Catherine? Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, I'm great, honey. Thank you for contacting me again.
Hey,
Great to see you.
hey, great to see you too. And it's amazing what's happened. But Greg, I'm going to let you start out with some questions for Catherine.
Yeah, cool. So since I didn't have the opportunity to meet you off Zoom as Neil did, so Catherine, tell me, what was your aha moment when you realized that acting wasn't just going to be a hobby, but it was your thing?
Oh, aha moment. Well, can I just say that when I was a young girl and I was like a freshman in college, I was at the University of South Florida, and they were scouting for Burt Reynolds' movie of girls, like down by what was that movie? Deliverance? Was that it? 100 years ago. And they said, "Do you want to be in the movie? You could be in a movie." And I went, "Oh, no, no, no. I'm a teacher. And no, no, I have no interest in being in a movie." But anyway, so fast forward, I ended up in New York and I was a model. And I modeled for San Angelo. Is that his name? He's long gone away. I was a suit model, and and he was always getting. Janice Dickinson was there with me on the runways. It was a big deal. I was the shrimp. I was like 5'8", and everybody was tall, and everybody was really skinny. And they used to always, "Here comes the fat one." I was so thin. I can't tell you. I didn't eat, but they called me the fat one. But anyway, Giorgio said, "I think you're an actress, not a model." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, you should go study acting." And that was my aha. He told me what to do.
Cool.
Giorgio St. Angelo, that was it. Giorgio St. Angelo. So he sent me off to some place in New York and I started studying. And then I ended up with Uta Hagen. And I think it was really her when she said, "You've got it. You've got it." And I said, "What do I have?" A little girl from Cookeville, Tennessee. What do I have? And she said, "You've got that magic thing, and you need to do this. This is what you need to do." And
Yeah.
from then on, it's been quite a journey.
And you ran with it then, right?
I ran with it, baby. I ran with it. I ran hard with it. I was married at the time to a man who did not want me to be an actress. He told me I would either leave him because I became famous or I wouldn't get jobs and I would be depressed. And I said, "Okay, well, that sounds terrible." And anyway, I didn't care what he said. We ended up getting divorced, but not over that. But I just thought, I have to do this. And I I really, it's kind of like air. It's like I have to breathe, I have to act. So I've done it for a long, long time now. I mean, well, I'm going to be 72. Can you believe
Oh,
that?
wow.
I
Oh,
know,
Hmm.
72 in July. July 7th, I'll be 72. And I've been doing this, since my 20s. So that's a long time to do it. And I had a baby in there. She's 31, and I took a little break when I had her because she was like the best movie I ever had. So I thought, well, I'll be a mommy now. And I did. And we had a great time with ponies and moved to Ojai and did all this. But I still wanted to act, but I wanted to be with her more. So I took this hiatus. And that's what's been difficult for me because I came back and I thought I sort of left in my 40s and 50s. And I thought, oh, everybody's going to want me back. Well, they could have cared less about me. They were like, "Oh, no one else left. You left." And, blah, blah. So I started all over again. I went to AFI, I went to UCLA, and I signed up to do their student films. And I had to get new footage because, Night Court and Married with Children and those little shows where I was being a little sexy gal, those days were over. And I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to have to do this. Get footage, make a reel, get a manager, get an agent. I did it. And so I'm proud of my own self that I worked my way back to the point that I am now, you
that's
know.
better than the Rocky comeback story. That was amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I actually did a movie with Sly, so that was fun to say that. I loved him. He
Excellent.
was
Yeah, it's
great.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, Catherine, besides that, you've had some other amazing roles. Do you have a favorite behind the scenes memory that still makes you smile or laugh when you think about it?
Oh, so many. Good question. So many behind the scenes, crazy ones. In my youth, a lot of crazy ones. I was thinking about Ghostbusters, um, with Ivan Reitman. He was so cute. I went in to see him, he was in this hotel room, and it was the Upper West Side. I remember that it was Central Park West. I don't know which hotel, to be auditioned for the part of this hooker. And I was playing hooker after hooker after hooker. I mean, I was just a hooker in my 20s. That's what women played, really. We played hookers. And I had a really great talk with him, and he said, "Well, are you going to be okay if Zool or whatever it was going to jump on top of you and knock you down?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be fine about that." And I said, "In fact, I can do my own stunts." I was sort of broke, and I wanted that money. He said, "Really?" I said, "Oh yeah, I can do that." So we go out to shoot it that night, and we shot really late, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the morning. And the horses were coming, the police, and they stopped. I had hair, back in the day, you had hair like out to here. And the horses stopped in my hair. And well, first of all, he jumped on me. And then I fall back onto this mattress. And then the horses stop in my hair. And it was like, then he pulled me aside. He said, "Are you sure you want to do that? Have you done stunts before?" I'm like, no. So it was like, those kind of moments are very sweet. And, I tell you, LL Cool J, I'm going to shout out for him, because he was the sweetest to me on that NCIS. Is that what it is? LA,
Yeah.
NCIS LA. And I said, "I'm just so nervous. I don't know why I'm so nervous." And he talked me off the ledge. He said, "Oh my gosh, you got this." And then he gave me all these great sayings, and he put his arm around me. He took total care of me. And I find that to be true of all the big ones. I say the big ones, the ones that are really famous. They seem to be so nice and comfortable with helping. They're
Yeah.
there for you, and I feel that way. Even Amy Adams and Sharp Objects. Amy, I was in the bathroom. I had to say this stuff, I don't know. I was one of the gossip ladies in the town of Sharp Objects, and it was going to be like, we've been working all day, and we got into, now we're going to turn around on me. We had Elizabeth Perkins, we had Amy, but we're going to turn around on little me. So I'm like in the bathroom, and I didn't know she was there, and I was like trying to say it and practice, and she came up to me and she put her arm around me, and she said, "You're going to be great. You've been great all day." It is like that stuff. I think that's the magic of, it's it's like we're a tribe. I don't know, it's wonderful. I love being an actress with these incredible people. I've had that opportunity to work with really fabulous people.
And Catherine, what do you say when you had to come back and how hard it was, and then you came back and you get to this level and you're getting some interesting roles, and then this
Yeah,
role with the Residents is totally different in a way because ultimately, people are going to remember you even more about this. Some of the
yeah,
others are smaller roles, but I think this
yeah.
here kind of is really shaping where you're going
You
further
think so?
parts.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, this is good news. Thank you for that great news. Well, that was interesting. It was a self-tape. We do a lot of self-tape ever since the pandemic, which was like 5 years ago now. We've been self-taping, and I got cast off the self-tape. And I went to the reading. The reading was fantastic. It was all of us. And I mean, when you deal with Shondaland, you're at the top of the game. You deal with Netflix and Shondaland, forget about it. It's like it doesn't get really bigger than that and better than that. And it was an incredible reading and all that. And I went over to Shonda and to Betsy Beers, and I said, "Well, you had me in Scandal, and you had me in How to Get Away with Murder, and now I'm in The Residence, and I played a judge, and I played a governor, and now I'm playing the former first lady." And they went, "We know, Catherine." That's like giving them news. They do that already. And I said, "I'm just so excited. I'm so excited." And it was absolutely a fantastic experience, because a lot of what you saw, a lot of things get cut, how things are. But I got to kind of improv there a lot, at the state dinner. And I mean, I don't know what it'll do for me, but I do know that I've had several, you're right, I've had several more auditions than usual recently. So maybe you're right. I don't I have no idea what will happen. This is my belief. My belief, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a very spiritual person. And I believe that there's favor. I believe that there's God. I kind of have to lift it up all the time because I get my heart set on things. Like I had my heart set on something a few
Right.
days ago. And I had to like, I've had to really work at lifting it up because it's supposed to be mine. It's going to be mine. And if it's not supposed to be mine, it's just not their vision. And it's really okay. I had that opportunity to act that day with that director on a Zoom. And what's better than that? Well, getting the job is better. But what but I just love what I do. I love what I do. And what was the question? Was there a question
No,
or did
you
I
did
just
really good. You're just kind of talking about that journey and where you're at.
Yeah, and the
You're
comeback.
hearing me say that's the next level because doing Shondaland, getting this opportunity that you're going to be memorable. At times you'll say, "Hey, this was me in this specific part," but
Oh
this
yeah.
time you were one of the roles. What? So kind of, Greg, I'll go with one. I watched The Residence. I loved it because it just reminds me of this whole Murder She Wrote thing. I ended up also
Yeah.
interviewing people from Gross Point Murder after, I mean, Gross Point Garden Society. And I said, these are the new things that are happening now that are really people have fun with. The who done it types of murders, types of
Yeah.
things. And it was just so funny. And there were so many talented people on that. And
Oh.
your role was almost with some of these big giant stars that we know from years ago. And your role, and Greg, her role was as memorable. That's where I'm thinking people are going to say, "Oh yeah, remember me from The Resonance." That's what you're going to have to kind of put yourself out there in your branding with these directors that might just not know, or casting directors and they just don't know. And they say, "Oh, okay,
It's
you
interesting.
were in a big Shondaland thing." Okay, now it's all about PR at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
tell us about the show, and then Greg will have another question.
Well, I played the former First Lady of the White House, Kim Abkin, and she was in the White House, which you didn't really learn from the show, for 8 years. So she had 2 terms in the White House. Where's her husband? I said he's dead. I don't, the writer did not say he was dead, but I decided he's dead. They invited me to the state dinner because I'm fun and I'm full of life and I'm going to make the Australian people that are there happy and all this. But they seated me at a terrible table. You know what I mean? With no one next to me. And I was very, very upset about that. And I couldn't believe it. Also, I like to drink. I'm like one of those ladies. Remember one of those White House ladies, one of those first ladies, like Barbara Bush.
Yeah.
She used to go downstairs in the basement and knit with the help. You know what I mean? She would go down there and do that, and she was friends with them. And Edwina, who plays one of the gals, the butlers, I loved her, and we had such a good time when I was in the White House. So I want her to sit next to me, which is the big no-no. The help can't sit down, but I decide she can, and I insist that she come. And then she gets in so much trouble for doing that. And then I am furious that this happened. And so the thing about the whole show is that Paul, who was the showrunner and creator of the show, Paul Davies, he has such a sense of humor and such a kind of a odd way of putting it together, and then he makes you think, oh, it's this one, oh, it's that one. My girlfriend said, I thought it was you for a minute. Maybe you did the murder because she was so upset with what they were doing to her. And I was like, oh yeah, that's good you thought that. And then we have to stay there for hours and hours because Uzo, who plays a detective, she's going to keep us and interview us. And I have just had it up to here. So one of my favorite parts is that I hold up, she makes us hold our name, write our names down and hold up the sign so she can remember who everybody is. And mine says, I used to live here. It's like, and that's how I feel about it. It's like, okay, I didn't do it. Of course I didn't do it. And then she's interviewing, she's like, well, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, when are we going to leave? I want to leave. I just want to go home. And I said, what if I said I did it? And then she was like, well, that would move things along. She was like, and of course I didn't do it. And it was just such a great, and we were all I think we were like a theater group, like we were all held together and we were held in like a green room, when we were doing those scenes. And so we got to spend time together. Now, the sad part was, that our lead actor, um, Andre Brower, he died during the making of this. Did you know that?
No.
I
He,
saw that in the the credits or whatever. They said in
yeah.
memory art.
Well,
Yeah.
we did 4 episodes with him,
Wow.
and he was the Giancarlo, part. And I'd known him from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so we had a good time, reminiscing. I hadn't seen him in years, and he looked so well. He had cancer. It had been in remission.
Oh,
The strike happens, if you remember that, but there was the strike, the horrible strike, the writers strike first, and then the actors. So when we had to go on strike, we'd shot 4 episodes, and when we went on strike, a few weeks later, he died. And we didn't know what was going to happen for the show. We made that show 2 years ago. So,
Really?
we didn't know what, Paul was going to do with it. Is he going to replace him? Is he going to AI him? Or is it what is going to happen? And it took a long time for us to find out, but then they replaced him with Giancarlo, which I had done. So I had seen him, are you ready, in 40 years. And I was like, he looked exactly the same to me. He said I did too. But I'm telling you, we did a show in New York called Our Group, and it was about a group, like being in group therapy. And then each one of us kind of got shrunk every week. And so it was like a weird show, but there was a real psychiatrist. She was a fabulous Upper East Side psychiatrist, and she was not scripted. She would shrink the characters. We had scripts. And so anyway, we laughed and remembered that together. It was like ABC daytime. It was a great idea. One season it was gone, but I think we did 64 episodes. But anyway, so he came in and he did a phenomenal job, but it was heartbreaking to lose Andre. And I was heartbroken. And I was really heartbroken. I have to tell you this because I thought Netflix was in Shondaland were quite incredible for what they did. When he died, they sent out a letter and they said if anyone needs counseling, that they had someone that, back at our stages that was going to come in and help. And I went because I was very, very, very upset
Wow.
in the grief of it all. And then when I was talking about him and grieving him, and then she started talking about my mother, and I had no idea that I hadn't grieved my mother. So it was a
oh,
big
wow.
healing time for me. I had no idea. I thought I grieved her. But I don't grieve a lot of things. I like kind of move on. As you said, I keep going. I just keep going.
No,
I'm
see,
like,
I just believe something's bigger going to even happen than this because I just see that you're memorable. And that's going to be a key thing when you do every audition is, do you remember me in The Residence? Some of the other stuff, like I have to go back and say, I got to remember in Ghostbusters, right? And all
yeah.
these different places where these specific spots, but she moved her way up, Greg, to this level. But for The Residence, as we're promoting that, check her out on Netflix.
That
Ultimately,
was
this is the
I
best
actually,
book.
Neil, I saw it. I remember it now. My wife and I, a week or 2 weekends ago, we watched it like in a day. We
Oh,
Yeah.
just sat,
wow.
we loved it. They had some really cool things, like how the detective was really into the birds and
Oh,
she
I
was
love
up
the
in that bird
birds.
stoop. That was so
Hmm.
cool. And they sent her the electronics and she got to watch, what was going on in
Yeah.
Congress or the Senate. That was neat. The other part was amazing, was like in the Lincoln bedroom, they had to bring that in. Oh, I want to sleep in the Lincoln
Oh,
bedroom.
yeah.
If you
She
remember back
started.
in the Clinton days, that was a big thing.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, you know. And then she finds, she takes out, she scrapes the paint away, and she sees the blood on the,
Oh, yeah.
on the baseboard there. It was hilarious, and I love the chef was throwing glass, and that was so
Oh,
cool. It was
so
it was great,
it
and
was
you, of
great. It was,
course, were amazing.
oh, thank you,
Um,
honey.
you were totally amazing. So that it was
Thank
really
you.
exciting. Yeah, we want to know if you guys going to have another one. It was so good.
Well, I heard that there might be another one, but it's not going to be in the White House. It's kind of like Mike
No,
White. It'll be like
yeah,
Mike White doing, White Lotus. Um, it'll be like somewhere else, and Uzo would be you know what I mean? So I don't know. But wouldn't it be good if you made all of us like in there, just switched our parts up?
yeah,
I just throwing that out there.
yeah.
But
Yeah, definitely. They
yeah,
got to do that. Switch the parts up,
yeah,
like
switch the
Clue,
parts up
like
and
Clue.
yeah, exactly. exactly. So, I mean, I see that, but I don't know what they see. But I really think it was so well received. I mean, it had billions of I mean, of watchers. I forget how many, but it really topped it all because Adolescence came out. That show was a
I saw
knockout.
that. Did you see
Oh,
Adolescence, Greg?
No, I
Oh,
did not.
that's so powerful.
oh,
Oh
you've got
my
to
God.
see that. And
Okay.
that's the antithesis of our show. And it came out at the same time. So they were kind of number one, we were number two. But then we kind of bumped ahead the second week and got all these viewers because I think word of mouth really moves along. And it's, I mean, I think at this time in our country that we need something to laugh about. And I think it's a show where you really can laugh. I feel like it's kind of like, is that feeling of Murders in the Building, don't
Yeah.
you? Does
Yeah.
it feel like
I
that?
see the mixture of Clue, other whodunits, the way
Yeah,
they were successful with comedy, almost Pink Panther comedy and
yeah,
different things. All put all that together with I guess just anything and anything to eat to who done it and the way it's done and like what do you mean who did it? And then I
yeah.
guess bringing Bronson Pinchot back. Come on now, and bringing some of
Oh
these
yeah.
other people back. Oh. Where
Ah,
were
wasn't that
they?
great? Yeah.
And then you just then certain people like cameos, and you had a larger cameo than some of the bigger cameo people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that
Wasn't
they
that
brought
great?
everyone back in
Yeah, it
certain
was. Yeah, I think that it was this, star-studded cast, and I think that Shonda can get anything she wants. I mean, Shonda's our queen. You know what I mean? Shonda Land is it. If someone calls you and says, "Do you want to do something that Shonda Land?" They don't even have to get the word out, and you're like, "Yes, yes." And Netflix is our king, so she's the queen, and I think Netflix is the king because Netflix keeps shooting here in LA and we are in trouble shooting in LA. The incentives everywhere else are taking us out of town, So
Wow.
I'm hoping that, I'm hoping we'll get some bigger incentives and Newsom will make that happen. And I know he wants to. So, maybe it's a matter of time that we can get the business back. It's in Canada, they shoot in Georgia, they shoot everywhere but here. So,
but you
you
got to
know,
be here to audition. That's what's crazy, right?
well, you can be anywhere. Think about it. You're
True.
self-taping. I could
Right.
be,
So
live
there's
next
no
door to
need to
you.
live in Hollywood anymore, you think?
No, there's no need to live here except, you know, if you want to do the few shows that we have. We have, 911 or Grey's Anatomy. There's a few shows that, we can do here, but we could get those from anywhere. Actually, it's an international business now for actors. They're
Hmm.
self-taping from everywhere. Can you imagine? They're looking at thousands of tapes,
Wow.
thousands. I don't know how they sift through them, how they have the time or the energy or, because it's a miracle to get an audition. And then when you get an audition, there's so many people that are gotten them,
Right.
you
And
know?
that's what your agent has to do. So Greg has a question he asks everyone. Do you have another question for Catherine before that, or are you ready to do your question, Greg?
No, I'm good. I'm all excited, gonna go ask my wife if she wants to watch The Residence again. So
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, honest to God, it was just one episode after another. We just like and we were like, what do you mean it's over? What
Yeah.
that was
But was it
frustrating.
it was really kind of wild,
Yeah,
the ending of who did it,
it was great.
who done it,
Which we
you
won't
know.
talk about.
No, no, because that'll make you not want to watch it. But it's like talking about White Lotus at the end. Let's not talk about what happened
That,
at the end.
exactly.
You know what I mean? Got to watch it. But I think it was so clever and so well done, and just brilliant acting, and the directors were incredible. We had two different directors, the first four episodes and the second four episodes. They were all wonderful. The crew and the set, let's just give a little praise for that set. I mean, building that White House, it was so gorgeous. It's all on stage. They built it, everything. So I'm just very proud of that. I'm proud of that work and so blessed that I got to do it. I'm thrilled.
Very cool. Well, Catherine, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you and getting to know about your career and what's coming up and
Thank
talk
you.
about The Residence. But so this is a good opportunity for a little mentoring for me, for Neil, for everybody who's out there watching and listening. So tell me, Catherine, what do you feel is the most important thing in life you've ever learned?
Hmm. That was such a good question. That's a heavy question. What was the important thing I've learned in life? Hmm. Several. So I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was to trust yourself. It's trust that it's going to work out. This too shall pass. This is, it's not, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to everything. Is to trust that you're exactly where you're supposed to be at that exact moment. And, and trust goes along with forgiveness, and to forgive yourself for whatever, mistakes you made. No one's perfect. And it's like to trust that this is a journey we're all on, and that there's some power greater than ourselves that are kind of watching over us, and that, not to be afraid. And I guess the biggest thing is to never give up.
Right.
Great. Terrific answer.
Because really, you never know what's going to happen next. So, Catherine, we're waiting for the next big gig. And remember, use that as a calling card, especially if they don't know
Okay.
you in your auditions. Make sure, hey, you didn't check me out in the residence. And that could, because a lot of people like name recognition, even if it's certain name recognition in shows. So you
Okay.
never know where that's going to get you to the
Thank
next
you,
level.
honey.
Yeah, you're welcome. So where can we check you out on social media? Best place.
Oh, well, I think you should just go to Real, Real, Catherine Carlin, Catherine, Carlen, and that's on Instagram. I think that's the best place. You could do Facebook too. I think it's just Catherine Carlin there. And then I have a website, www.catherinecarlin, real Catherine Carlin. I had to put real because someone else said my name. I don't know. But all those places are good. You just Google my name and there's a lot of choices.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks again,
Thank
Catherine.
you. Thank
All
you,
right.
sweetheart.
All right.
Thank
That